Universe Season 1 Episode 11 Arcade Mania is a simplistic episode that I'd almost call pointless filler, but for slightly developing Garnet's character. It bothers me that what we do learn about her is significant enough that I can't recommend skipping it in a first viewing, though I suspect most people would skip it in a rewatch. What it comes down to is three main elements: a nod to video games, a heavy-handed message about the danger of video game addiction, and an adult joke.
Garnet, you gotta come! Quick!
The episode starts with Steven out on a mission with the gems as they fight a monster. The main monster is defeated, but it releases a bunch of spikes with screw threads that drill into the ground to become a nuisance later in the episode. Faced with this apparent victory, Steven wants to celebrate and drags the gems to play arcade games with him. This part is a relatable nod to a common conflict where a kid wants to hang out with their parents by doing an activity that the kid enjoys, but the parents don't enjoy. It's a bit cringy just because it's relatable. I've been in both positions, as the kid trying to get my parents to play kid games, and as an older kid looking after a younger kid and not enjoying what they're into. It's not a fun part of the episode, but it is relatable. Steven tries to get Amethyst into skee-ball, but she'd prefer to cheat to get tickets, displaying a preference for disorder over order. He tries to get Pearl into a game where you're supposed to commit traffic violations, but she'd prefer to follow the rules. Order over disorder. Presumably, he would have had more success swapping their games. As for Garnet, he tries to set her up with various physical challenges, but she keeps breaking things. To keep from getting kicked out, he finds a physical game that doesn't involve force. Meat Beat Mania.
Just shake the meat to the beat!
Garnet gets into it. Out of all the gems, she takes to an arcade game most out of all of them. At first, it seems like a success. She enjoys a kid pastime. Except she enjoys it a little too much. Suddenly, she starts neglecting her other duties as a crystal gem to play a game. This represents the other side of the family conflict. Instead of a parent who hates playing kid games, she's a parent who gets so into a kid game that she stops being dependable to fulfill the roles that the kid expects of them. Again, it's relatable, but kind of tends to experience secondhand. At the same time, they don't explore the family dynamic enough for it to really be meaningful. Instead, what there seems to be is a moral lesson about the dangers of video game addiction. Now, video game addiction is something that affects some people, but tends to be overblown into scaremongering over every time anyone actually enjoys playing video games as a hobby. Some people are really into basketball and play it whenever they can, practicing to build up their skills, and we just call them people who love basketball. Some people are really into playing the piano, hitting the complicated rhythmic pattern at exactly the right pacing, practicing whenever they can, and we call them skilled musicians dedicated to their craft. But when it's video games, just being really into the hobby is framed as addiction. It's reactionary nonsense, freaking out over something new that kids are into, and audiences are sick of TV shows condescending to kids with plot lines about personal failings and hypnotism. Unfortunately, Arcade Mania follows that pattern and portrays Garnet as having a personal failing that makes her succumb to video game addiction the first time she plays a single game, and there's some allusion to the idea of her being hypnotized. If only she watched the Star Trek The Next Generation episode The Game, in which aliens use hypnotic video games to take over the Enterprise. Then she might be aware of the dangers. It's obnoxious, to say the least. Kids don't like being condescended to, and neither do adults who grew up with these same Jack Thompson-style satanic panic nonsense episodes shoved down their throats. Anyway, Mr. Smiley kicks them out and bans Steven from the arcade. He assumes Garnet leaves with them, but she remains transfixed at Meat Beat Mania. Later on, he looks for her but can't find her, and is shocked to learn that she's still playing the game. A detail revealed in Season 1, Episode 10, Steven's Lion, is that gems don't sleep, but Amethyst likes to pretend to sleep. And we see Garnet's video game obsession showcasing that the gems can keep performing a single task, basically forever, like the enslaved gems running pieces of machinery. Garnet has autonomy, but she's playing the game non-stop kind of like an enslaved gem. The show frames it as unnerving to see her spending so much time on one game, though if we saw Pearl practicing sword fighting for the same amount of time, we might be more inclined to excuse her as simply dedicated to being a knight-like figure. The living drill bits show up as starfish-like monsters, resembling low-level enemies in a video game. I swear I fought things like this in something, but some Googling only turned up the Star Slaps from Super Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars. I want to say that I fought these guys in Final Fantasy, but I can't really find them. If someone knows something closer, please comment. Pearl, Amethyst, and Steven grind as much as they can, but they need their tank. Garnet is absent, slave to the rhythm, so Steven tries to get her to stop playing and join them. He cuts the power, but she absentmindedly uses her power to charge it up and keeps playing, not even really noticing that Steven is there. He climbs on top of her to snap her out of it, and her sunglasses fall off and reveal a third eye, resembling the spiritual symbol from Hinduism and Buddhism. With the third eye, one can see the spiritual realm as well as the past and the future. It's associated with intuition and wisdom, and Garnet's is trained on the video game, allowing her to master the game, but keeping her from being able to leave the gems to fight monsters. Steven finally saves her by overcoming his love of video games and destroying the video game. She snaps out of it and saves the day. The moral of the story is clear. If you're going to cheat at video games, don't get caught. This episode is really hard to watch in a similar way as Season 1, Episode 8, Serious Steven. There's a decent theme about a common family conflict that is terribly executed and drowned out with the obnoxious video game addiction narrative. There's nothing original said about the subject, it's just an annoying PSA about a topic that everyone already knows. I'd say to skip it, except for its development of Garnet's character. We get the reveal of her third eye, and the sense that she's only the great leader when she's focusing on the mission. When she's focusing on a distraction, she totally loses the ability to tell what's even going on. It's a rather welcome weakness and a generally overpowered character. We'll learn more about her third eye and the extent of her abilities to use it to gain a greater understanding of the world in Season 1, Episode 39, Future Vision. Unfortunately, these details about Garnet don't keep Arcade Mania from being an obnoxious episode. Probably the most interesting part of the episode is the adult joke. Meat Beat Mania makes a very overt allusion to masturbation in a similar way that Rocco's Modern Life does with the Choky Chicken fast food restaurant. It's the first real sign that the audience should be on the lookout for that kind of adult humor designed to fly over kids' heads. It's possible that there was some intention to allude to the idea that, while kids may take away a standard video game addiction message, there would be an underlying message to adults warning against obsessively masturbating. Season 1, Episode 13, So Many Birthdays, expresses a similar sentiment in a throwaway adult joke that kids don't notice.
That was fun, but a boy on the cusp of manhood can't spend the whole day whackering.
Even if that's true, it's still not executed well. There's still the issue of why it becomes a bad activity. Why is it bad? What's the limit? It doesn't delineate that well. It's still an obnoxious episode. Next time, a giant woman!